Creep from the Deep, Chapter 4. The engines roared. Dr. D turned the wheel, and the Cassandra edged sharply into the waves. Sheena and I took our places on a bench against the cabin wall. The boat rocked hard, and a strong spray washed over the railing. Soon we were crashing over the sparkling waves. A red-orange sun floated on the horizon. I turned back and saw the tiny island of Caribo vanish, a speck of yellow on the blue water. About an hour later, Dr. D locked the wheel. Then he led the way down to the galley for some lunch. Normally, the Cassandra has a crew of 3 or 4, but when Sheena and I visit in the summer, Dr. D likes to give them time off. He pulled out the grilled bluefish left over from last night's dinner and some sandwich rolls. And we sat around the small white table and ate fish sandwiches and drank papaya juice. After lunch, Dr. D pulled off his glasses and cleaned them with his napkin. "I'll tell you what we're doing," he said, "but you probably won't believe me." He chuckled. "I'm not sure I believe it myself, but we're going to try to track down a sunken pirate ship." My mouth dropped open. "You mean like real pirates?" I said. Dr. D nodded and slid his glasses back on. "People have been searching for this ship for over 200 years, he said. My workers back on the mainland think they have located it using acoustic imaging and laser mapping. They just emailed me all the info." Dr. D's eyes flashed. "Here's the amazing thing," he said. "If the sonar image is correct, we're actually not too far from where the ship went down." Sheena and I nodded and waited for him to tell us more. "The ship is called the Scarlet Skull," he said. "Perfect name for a pirate ship, right?" He took a long sip of papaya juice. "According to legend, the ship sank in the late 1780s, he said, "and it took millions of dollars of jewels and gold treasure down with it." "And we're going to find the treasure and be billionaires," I cried. I jumped up and down and pumped my fist in the air. Sheena grabbed me and pulled me back down. "Billy, were you born immature?" "If we find the treasure, it will all go to the Caribo Dolphin Rescue Fund," said Dr. D. "I'd be thrilled to find it, but I'm a scientist, not a treasure hunter." "This is totally cool," I said. I was so excited I could barely sit still. "How did the pirate ship go down?" Sheena asked. Dr. D scratched his head. "This is where the story gets weird," he said, "and this is what I want to investigate. The reporters at the time said there are 2 pirate ships. They were sailing in view of each other. It was a calm, clear day. The ocean waves were flat and gentle, and suddenly a swirling black cloud swept over the water. The Scarlet Skull sailed into the cloud and disappeared." "Huh? It just disappeared?" I said. Dr. D nodded. "I told you it was weird. The black cloud passed and the pirate ship had vanished. The pirates on the other ship stood staring, waiting for it to reappear, but it was never seen again." Sheena and I stared at him. Neither of us spoke. Dr. D opened a file of papers he had brought to lunch and scanned them quickly. "The Scarlet Skull belonged to a notorious captain named Long Ben Oneleg," he said. "Long Ben was very bad news." I felt a shiver at the back of my neck. "How bad?" I asked. "Well, some people believe that he was so evil the sea just swallowed him up. Swallowed him and his entire ship to protect the world from his evil." Dr. D continued to skim the papers. "Here's a story that will give you a good idea of what Captain Ben was like. It seems he kept a big tub of hungry rats on the ship. When one of his men did something to make him angry, he tossed the guy into the tub. Then he sat back and watched the rats make lunch of him." Sheena grabbed her throat and groaned. "Oh, that's way sick." "Sometimes when he was bored," Dr. D continued, "he threw someone in the rat tub just for entertainment." "They didn't have TV in those days, right?" I joked. But when I pictured the hungry rats gnawing on some poor guy, I felt a little sick. "So all the pirates drowned when the ship went down?" Sheena asked. Dr. D nodded. "The pirates drowned, the rats drowned, and the treasure sank with them." He set the papers on the table and squeezed Sheena's hand. "And there's one more part to the story, a very creepy part." He stopped as if he didn't want to tell us. We waited, our eyes locked on his. "Tell us," I said. "Please tell us." Chapter 5. Dr. D hesitated. I could see he was thinking hard. "Well," he said finally, "according to the legend, the Scarlet Skull is haunted. Long Ben prowls the sunken ship, always awake, always alert to protect the treasure." I gasped, but Sheena laughed. "Uncle George, you don't believe in ghosts, do you?" Dr. D gazed back at her through his thick glasses. He didn't reply. "Do you?" Sheena insisted. "Do you really believe in ghosts?" He's not a ghost," Dr. D muttered. "According to the legend, he's a zombie." And suddenly, in my mind, sounding so distant, so far away, I heard a soft, evil whisper, "I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting." Did Sheena and Dr. D see me shiver? I don't think they noticed. Of course, the whispered voice was only in my mind, my wild imagination taking off again. I was sitting there, scaring myself. This is the perfect mission for Undersea Mutant, I told myself. Zombie pirates in a sunken treasure ship. Awesome. So why did my stomach suddenly feel as if I'd swallowed a huge rock? "Tell us the truth," my sister said, pressing our uncle. "Zombies, true or false?" That made Dr. D smile. "I'm a scientist," he said. "I study the real world. I don't believe in zombie pirates." The Cassandra bounced hard on the waves. We tilted forward, then back. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. I glanced out the galley porthole. In the distance, I could see islands of dark, craggy rocks and tall purple cliffs. "I don't believe in zombies," Dr. D repeated, "but I have been fascinated by this mystery for years, and if we can find the ship, I can study the natural causes. I can determine what really made that ship go down." Dr. D jumped. He collected our plastic dishes and dropped them into the tiny galley sink. "Come on," he said, "I want to show you something." He led us up to the main deck and around the starboard side. Normally, he keeps a small dinghy tethered to the side, a little boat for going onshore to islands. "Whoa!" I let out a startled cry. In place of the dinghy, a tiny submarine floated beside the Cassandra. "It's my own design," Dr. D said. "Cute, huh? I call it the Deep Diver." My heart was racing. Were we really going down to the bottom of the ocean in this little sub? I leaned over the rail and studied it. It looked like a toy, shaped like a real submarine. Bright yellow metal with a narrow hatch on top, big enough for only one person at a time. I saw round glass portholes in front, back, and on both sides. 2 big headlights in front, twin thrusters at the back. "The 3 of us should fit okay," Dr. D said. "It'll be a snug ride. My little sub won't go long distances, but it'll take us down to the sunken ship, if we find it. And it has a little speed. I can get it up to 5 knots if I really push it." Another dangerous mission for the Undersea Mutant, I thought. I imagined myself in a furious sword fight with a zombie pirate. Then I saw myself swimming away in victory, pulling a huge treasure chest brimming with jewels behind me. Actually, I felt a little shaky. I had a fluttering feeling in my stomach. I couldn't stop it. I was scared. The deep diver looked so small and fragile. I imagined it being swallowed by an enormous shark. Then I shut my eyes and imagined a deafening crash, shattered glass. I pictured a great green eel crashing through a porthole. It had me in its teeth. It wrapped its tongue around me. I was about to become eel food. "Whoa, Billy, stop." Yes, I could dream up crazy adventures all day long, but even with my great imagination, I couldn't dream up the real horrors that awaited us at the bottom of the ocean. It all started the next afternoon. Chapter 6. A little after 2 o'clock, Dr. D called Sheena and me into his computer lab on the main deck of the Cassandra. "I think we're very close," he said. He was staring at 4 monitors. They had blue and green ocean maps on them. White dots moved across the screens. He pointed to a white dot on the top screen. "That's us," he said. Then he moved his fingers over a dark shape at the bottom of the screen. "That could be the sunken ship." Sheena and I stared at the dark shape. It didn't look like a ship. It just looked like a black smudge on the screen. Dr. D tapped the smudge 2 or 3 times. Then he jumped up from his chair. "Let's go check it out." I swallowed hard. "You mean get in the sub?" Sheena pumped her fists in the air. "This is totally cool," she cried. I couldn't let her see how scared I was. I slapped her a high five. "Don't be scared, Sheena. Dr. D and I can handle things." "Funny," Sheena said, rolling her eyes. "That's about as funny as a shark bite." I bit her arm. "Not too hard, just as a joke. She's so annoying." When we came out on the deck, Dr. D had already anchored the Cassandra. It was a bright day with puffy white clouds high in the sky. The blue-green waves lapped calmly at our boat. Dr. D led us to the little white sub. There's no white in there. I don't know where that white came from. Dr. D led us to the little sub. He pulled open the hatch. We peered down into the small chamber. "Lower yourself slowly," Dr. D said. "There's plenty of room once you get in the cabin." Sheena bumped me out of the way. "Ladies first," she said. She squeezed into the hatch and lowered herself quickly out of sight. Awesome, her voice echoed up from the tiny chamber. My turn. The undersea mutant follows the call to adventure, I told myself. Wherever danger goes, the mutant follows. My foot missed the bottom ladder rung. I fell. Landed on my feet. Ta-da! I made it look as if I meant to do it. Sheena didn't see my klutzy move. She took the seat at the end and studied the control panel. She turned and grinned at me. What do you think would happen if I pushed this button? Sheena, don't, I cried. She laughed. Just testing you. You failed. What a pain, always trying to prove that she's braver than me. I dropped down next to her. The black plastic seats were jammed close together. The cabin ceiling was just a few inches over our heads. I heard the hatch slam shut above us. Dr. D lowered himself into the cabin and dropped into the seat next to me. He leaned over the control panel. He threw a few switches. The cabin filled with orange light. He pushed a yellow button, and the engine hummed to life. This sub is so easy to pilot, a monkey could do it, he said. Does that mean Billy could do it too? Sheena cracked. Let me show you both, Dr. D said. This is the helm. It steers just like the wheel of a car. That yellow button is the ignition. He tapped a round screen on the control panel. That's the satellite navigation system, he said. It's like the GPS navigation in a car, only it maps the ocean. And this screen next to it is the sonar echo display. It picks up any objects on the ocean floor. He pointed down to his foot. See the pedal? It looks like a gas pedal, right? Push the top of it down with the ball of your foot and the sub goes forward. Push the bottom down with the heel and the rear thrusters come on, sending the sub back. He grabbed the stick to the right of the wheel. Pull up and the sub goes up. Pull down and we descend. I swallowed hard. I felt a little seasick and we weren't even underwater yet. I won't be so stressed once we start moving, I told myself. What would the undersea mutant do in this situation? I was too excited and scared to think about the undersea mutant. Do you really think the pirate ship is down there? I stammered. Dr. D studied the satellite navigation screen. Let's find out, Billy, he murmured. He lowered his foot on the accelerator and pulled the stick down. I heard the thrusters roar to life. I grabbed the sides of the seat as we splashed hard into the water. We were sinking slowly. I stared out the porthole. The blue sky disappeared as water covered the glass. Down, down. A string of bubbles rippled outside the glass. The water darkened as we dropped. Dr. D pushed a switch, and the orange lights inside our chamber brightened to yellow. My ears just popped, Dr. D said. How about yours? I think my eyes just popped, I said. I wanted it to sound like a joke, but I think it sounded a little scared. Do we have diving equipment? Sheena asked. If we find the ship, can we swim out and explore it? What a show-off, I thought. She wants to swim at the bottom of the ocean? Dr. D shook his head. No room for diving equipment. If the pressure holds, we should be able to get very close to the sunken ship. We can see a lot from inside here. If the pressure holds? An hour passed, then another hour. We have to descend very slowly, Dr. D explained, especially in this tiny tin can. I wished he wouldn't call it a tin can. I gazed out at the twin beams of light. All I could see was the blue-green murk. Finally, Dr. D pulled the stick up and cut off the rear thrusters. We slowly stopped dropping. The sub rocked from side to side. Dr. D squinted at the monitor. We're about 100 yards from the ocean floor, he said. Need to move forward now. I saw strange black coral formations outside the porthole. Shadowy forms, like underwater ghosts, I thought. Dr. D pressed the accelerator. The sub hesitated for a moment, then shot forward. He mopped sweat off his forehead with the palm of his hand. I'm pretty excited, he said, staring at the navigation screen. I've studied all kinds of sea life, but I've never seen anything like this. The engine sputtered. It sounded like a power lawnmower shutting down. Whoa, Dr. D uttered. What's going on? Silence now. No problem. It just stalled, Dr. D said. He pushed the yellow ignition button. The engine coughed, sputtered, died again. Hey! I let out a cry as I saw a huge black cloud rolling through the water toward us. Sheena saw it too. What's that? She cried. It moved quickly, no time to speed out of its way. I watched it roll forward like an immense black tidal wave, blacker than ink, blacker than anything I've ever seen. Dr. D? My voice came out in a choked whisper. I gripped the sides of the seat. I was painting so hard I could barely breathe. Dr. D? The blackness swept into the sub, icy cold. I couldn't see Dr. D. I couldn't see Sheena. I couldn't see my own hands in front of my face. Dr. D, I repeated in a tiny voice, what is happening? I don't know, he answered, and I don't like it. Chapter 7. I can't see a thing, Sheena said. It's like I'm blind. She grabbed my arm. Did we float into some kind of cave? No, Dr. D replied. We're not in a cave. I'm not sure what this is. Maybe it'll float past us, I choked out. I kept blinking, trying to see. I felt sick. I swallowed hard, trying not to gag. Sheena squeezed my arm. She was actually scared. There are inky parts out in these deep waters, Dr. D said, but I've never seen anything like this. Let me get the thrusters going. I'll try to steer us out of it. I couldn't see him, but I heard him working the controls. He muttered to himself each time the engine sputtered and died. Whoa! I let out a cry as we started to spin. Sheena bumped hard against me. The sub spun faster, round and round, and I felt it start to drop. We whirled down, then back up, spinning faster. I felt dizzy. I grabbed my stomach. I could feel my lunch rise up to my throat. I can't explain this, Dr. D stammered. Something is pulling us. Something... He stopped suddenly. The spinning slowed. The darkness covered us. I jumped and let out a frightened cry when I heard a loud noise close to me. Thwup! It sounded like when Dad opens a coffee can and the air pops out. Then silence. I held my breath, struggling not to barf. Finally, the inky blackness started to lift. Dr. D, are we okay? I asked in a shaky voice. No answer. Blinking, I struggled to see through the gray mist. Dr. D? Uncle George? What's happening? I asked. Can you get us back to the surface? Sheena asked. The lights flashed back on. Sheena and I both let out shocked cries. Dr. D was gone. Chapter 8. A cold shiver stiffened my back. I stared at the empty seat next to me. No, it's impossible, I screamed. Sheena jerked her body around and looked up. The hatch, she murmured. Is it open? Did he... I jumped to my feet and pulled myself up to the hatch, locked tight. But he couldn't vanish into thin air, Sheena said in a whisper. Dr. D? Dr. D? She began shouting his name. Can you hear us? Silence. The sub rocked gently. The black cloud had completely lifted. I slumped into Dr. D's seat. Sheena and I stared at each other. I knew we were both thinking the same thing. That pirate captain and his ship, I said. They disappeared in a black cloud, remember? No, Billy, don't say that, Sheena cried, grabbing my arm. They were never seen again. Don't say that. Don't. We'll find Dr. D. I know we will. Okay, I said. Let go of me. You're hurting me. She didn't even realize she kept squeezing my arm. Billy, what are we going to do? I didn't answer. I gripped the wheel hard and tried to fight my panic. Here we were, suddenly all alone near the bottom of the ocean in this tiny submarine. How will we find Dr. D? How much air do we have? How do we get back to the Cassandra? Are all three of us going to disappear? Every question sent shiver after shiver down my back. I gripped the wheel tighter, struggling to think. Strong currents rocked us from side to side. The twin lights on the front couldn't cut through the dark waters. The radio, I cried. We can call for help. I reached for the radio receiver. Do you know how to work it? Sheena asked in a tiny voice. No, I said, but maybe I can figure it out. I pushed the 2 buttons beneath the speaker. Hello? Can anyone hear me? Silence. Hello? I pushed more buttons. Hello? Is anyone there? Silence. I couldn't even get any static. We're too far down, I said. The radio won't work at this depth. Sheena was hugging herself, trying to stay calm. Well, get us back to the surface, she snapped. If we can get back to the Cassandra, we can radio for help. I leaned over the control panel. My hand trembled as I pushed the yellow ignition button. Hey! To my surprise, the engine roared to life. Yes, Sheena cried. We've got power. Bring us up, Billy. Hurry. I pushed my foot down on the accelerator. I pushed the stick up all the way. Whoa, what's wrong? I gasped. We nosed down hard. My head hit the glass. I saw flashing bursts of red. I let out a cry of pain. Sheena screamed. I pulled the stick down, then up again, but we kept falling, faster, as if a strong force was sucking us down. Pull us up, Sheena cried, frantically slamming her hands on the control board. I stared into the beams of light in front of us. They were tilting down. What is that? I gasped. I think it's a ship, Sheena cried. A sunken ship. Do something, Billy. Do something. We're going to crash right into it. Chapter 9. It was all happening too fast to think. The dark form of the sunken ship rose up in front of us. Stop, stop, stop! I didn't even realize I was screaming the word over and over. A hard bounce sent me spilling forward. I hit the control panel. To my shock, the engine sputtered and died. Through the murky water, I stared down at the sunken ship, tilted nearly on its side on the ocean floor. I saw broken masts, tattered sails covered in algae, a ragged hole the size of a car in the side of a bow. In the side of the bow. It's the pirate ship, I said, the Scarlet Skull. Sheena, do you believe it? We found it. Staring straight ahead, Sheena tugged at her hair. We're still dropping, she said. You have to get us out of here. Can you do it? She grabbed my arm. Maybe, I whispered. I stared down at the ship's deck, covered in barnacles. Brown and black coral and slimy green algae encrusted the walls. The ship's wheel lay on its side, cracked and rotten. I pushed the ignition button. The engine sputtered but didn't start. The dark water bubbled all around us, and the sub dropped sharply. Oh no, I screamed. My head smacked the glass again as our sub hit the mossy deck of the old ship and bounced up. My hands flew off the controls. A strong current pushed us forward. We rammed into the main cabin wall. Crack! We both screamed in horror. Our sub just split open. We're going to drown down here. But no, the sub was okay. Part of the ship's wall splintered. It cracked and fell away. The sub floated into the ship, into a vast cabin, seaweed clinging to the ceilings and walls. Hundreds of silvery fish, thin as needles, fed off the weeds. Silence inside the ship. Our sub tilted and spun slowly, casting a murky light all around. I think we're trapped in here, I whispered. I don't think we can get out. I was totally losing it. I never admitted it, but I always counted on Sheena to be the brave one. But now it was impossible to be brave. We were both terrified out of our skulls. As I peered out into the ship's cabin, Sheena shoved me aside and grabbed the controls. Get back, Billy. Let me try. She pushed the ignition button once, twice. The engine only coughed. She stamped down hard on the accelerator and then froze. I saw her blue eyes bulge. I turned to follow her stare. We both screamed when we saw it. The face, the grinning face in the water, staring in at us. Chapter 10. I gaped in horror at the grinning skull. The top of its head was crusted with black crab shells and snails. Fat brown sea worms bulged inside the mouth and its empty eye sockets. It pressed against the glass in front of us, a skeleton in a rotting shirt and torn trousers. Its horrible face stared in at us. Then it raised its bony arms, clenched its bony fingers into two fists. Bam! Bam! I jumped as it punched the glass with both fists. It's alive! It's trying to break in, Sheena said in a trembling whisper. Bam! Bam! I jumped with each punch. From somewhere deep in the sunken ship, I heard a low moan, like an animal in pain, and then ugly moans all around us. And as we stared in open-mouthed panic, a wall of skeletons floated up, pressing their skulls against the glass. Skeletons in tattered clothes, algae growing on their skulls, black crab shells hardened over their bones. Frozen in terror, I stared at the dark, empty eye sockets, their toothless grins, their cracked skulls, the worms and snails and crabs clinging to them. Bam! Bam! They lowered their skulls and smacked the glass with their foreheads. Again, again. Bam! Bam! They hammered the glass with their skulls and their bony hands. I saw fingers break off and float away, but the grinning skeletons kept pounding, pounding. I whipped my head around and saw more of them behind us, clinging to the sub. Sheena grabbed my arm and squeezed it tightly. Billy, we're surrounded. The pirates, they're alive. They're breaking in. Bam, bam, bam. Don't you see it? We woke them up, I cried. We woke up the pirates. Billy, they're going to break the glass, Sheena wailed. Panic swept over me. My heart pounded as loudly as the skulls on the glass. I couldn't think straight. Bam, bam. I slapped wildly at the ignition button. It won't go, Sheena, I cried. It won't go. Chapter 11. Bam, bam, bam. The ugly skulls battered the glass. Sheena's eyes were wide. Her face turned bright red. She pounded the control panel with both fists, and the engines rumbled to life. Yes, I cried. I shoved the stick all the way up. Bam, bam, bam. All around us, the skulls beat in a steady rhythm against the portholes. I could feel the sub start to rise. The skulls jerked back. Bony hands scratched against the glass, then fell away. Yes! The skeletal pirates disappeared beneath us. Their animal moans followed us, then slowly faded from our ears. The dark green water bubbled as the sub shot up. I held the stick in my trembling hand, pulled it up as far as it would go. We got away, Sheena said. We're heading to the surface. I knew we would. I knew we'd be okay. Despite the fear, I burst out laughing. It sure didn't take long for Sheena to get her old personality back, but now the frightening questions whirred through my brain once again. Can we find our way back to the Cassandra? If we do, will we be able to radio for help? Where is Dr. D? Did he really vanish from this tiny sub? How can we find him? Did we really see dead pirates come to life? Will they come after us? How much oxygen do we have left? Sheena and I stared through the porthole as if hypnotized. We watched the swirling water and didn't say a word. Finally, 2 hours later, the deep diver bobbed to the surface. I blinked in the bright sunlight. The waves shimmered as we rocked gently on top of the water. We made it, I cried, letting out a long breath. Sheena peered out the porthole. But where's the Cassandra? She asked. I felt all my muscles tighten. We can find it, I said. We didn't go far. I grabbed the wheel and began to turn the sub slowly. I made the sub spin in a wide circle. No sign of the sea lab. It has to be here, Sheena murmured. It's our only chance. Ignoring my fear, I moved the sub in larger and larger circles, but no, nothing but ocean. Endless ocean as far as we could see. We rocked on the water. The only sound now was the wash of the waves against the sub. We both stared out at the rolling waves. We didn't say a word. Finally, I turned to my sister. We're all alone, I said softly. Dr. D is gone, and no one knows we're out here. Sheena frowned at me. And what's the good news? There was none.